Welcome to Remember Your Source. I'm Julie Deline, the host of the show, and I'm excited to have my friend and colleague, Marianne Johnson. Is now teaching meditation and mindfulness full time. So welcome, Marianne. I'm excited to have you here.
Thanks, Julie. I'm humbled and happy to be here with you. I think the work you do is terrific. So anything I can do to contribute to it, or in any way be involved, I'm happy.
Thank you. Wonderful. So tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Sure. As Julie mentioned, my name is Marianne Johnson. For a number of years, I served as a facilitator and a mediator, working in the arena primarily of public policy, and also did organization development work. Work I really loved. But about 10 years ago, I went through a reflective period, not unlike many of the listeners, and Julie, I know you have too, where we stop and periodically look at what we want to do next. I was looking at this as kind of the next stage and maybe the last stage, hopefully along one of my professional career. And I realized when I was looking at my training and skills that really the single most important skill that I owned was my mindfulness practice. And that, if you will, it was time that I come out of the closet, and really do something with that. You know, I've been working with leaders for many years, helping them walk through change and conflict. And inevitably, I think I brought my mindfulness practice into it, but not overtly with them in ways that I thought could be really helpful. So I decided, literally, I think that day or the next day, I called the University of Massachusetts, which some of the listeners may know. John Kabat-Zinn founded as a place to train people in mindfulness, teaching mindfulness. And I'd had over at that point about 25 years of dedicated practice and retreat, and good fortune to study with many people. But it was really there that I got my training on how to be a teacher. And then from there, as good fortune would have it, I served for a number of years working at the Center for Spirituality and Healing at the University of Minnesota, terrific organization, and taught mindfulness-based stress reduction there and helped them develop their workshops and programs in leadership and mindfulness in the workplace. And then also should be noted, I had the good fortune of working with Janice Monterino at the Institute for Mindful Leadership also, and I was juggling a lot of balls, working at the university, working for the Institute. Oh, and by the way, maintaining my own private practice.
Right.
And about 2 years ago, Don Bazarko from United Health Group called me one day and said, come work for me full time. And as sad as I was to have to, it was actually a hard process for me to say goodbye to all that and take on a full-time job. But I'm very glad that I did, because I have learned a tremendous amount. And the gift of working with healthcare professionals, particularly with the burnout rates we see now amongst doctors and nurses and other professionals, it's really a gift to work with them and to introduce this skill as a way to enhance their resiliency and their well-being, and really more authentically and fully be engaged in their work. So that's what I'm doing now.
Wonderful. I totally can relate to kind of bringing in mindfulness into the back. I'm always bringing that in as the fabric behind my work. And so to come out more overtly and to say mindfulness is the key, is just the key. So anyway, I'm glad to be here with you. With that, I'd like to invite our audience just for a moment of pause, a moment of mindfulness, and to connect with your breath, to sit back, to feel the chair beneath you, or if you're walking, to feel your feet beneath you. Wherever you are, take a moment to breathe and let's acknowledge this moment with gratitude that we're here, that we have the ability to breathe, that we have a body to breathe with, that we're connecting in this awesome way across the internet in a recorded session. So I'm grateful to connect with you, Marianne. I'm grateful to connect with the audience. Thank you for being here. The major question I like to start out with, just a blunt question of how do you remember source and stay inspired, especially in these transformational times?
Such a good question. It's funny, I'm going to be leading a meditation a little bit, and today's election day.
Yes.
Listeners may not know that we recorded this on election day, so I'll just mention that. And I want to talk about polarization. We look at it out there, but internally we all, of course, carry polarization within ourselves. And how do we work with that, with equanimity? So something I'm really thinking about today. And I would say I like to start my day with my own mindfulness practice, a quiet time where I sit and just, I guess that's how I source which I believe is a universal life force, if you will. And this human condition that we all have, its ups and its downs, its joys and its sorrows. I guess my daily practice, and also not just my daily practice, but I'm part of a couple of communities that really help, that we sit together and study together these practices, which has been really incredibly helpful to me in my life too, to have the support. I think having a community of people who are on similar paths can be really, really helpful. And by the way, earlier, I think you mentioned, mindfulness is this powerful road. There are many different roads to source, by the way, and there are many different avenues. Mindfulness is just one that I've chosen to work in. Personally, I gravitate towards it, and I love teaching it to others because it's such a simple tool to come home to yourself and to enhance your own sense of well-being and connectedness so that we can more fully and authentically be in our lives. So I try to live it out as best I can, but it's not just about sitting. It's also about the choices I make every day.
Absolutely.
How I transition to and from things, all sorts of stuff, just coming to my breath, noticing when I'm reactive and giving myself some space to be with that, and then make some purposeful choices in my life.
Excellent. And that's exactly why I created the Mindful Moves. The Move is one game that helps to direct us to what is your wise move. And so these cards, I start out with
I love to use cards.
Yeah, where are you being present? How to be present, to map where you're at, to know what you're thinking about, to observe those thoughts. So this game card is for you to pick up an object and observe it and describe your thoughts about the object.
In my room?
Yes, anywhere in your room.
Okay, this is calling me.
Nice.
Plant.
Yes.
And you want me to describe it?
Yeah, describe it. What about the object?
Yeah, I always have a live blooming plant, and when it's summer, I have flowers from my garden. But now those are all dead. So life.
Yeah.
I bought the orange for the vibrancy of it all. The color radiates with me right now. And it reminds me when I'm at work and I'm really focused in and I need to take a breather, I look at the life in that plant and the vibrancy of the color, and it reminds me of the fullness of life. If I'm feeling really myopic in my perspectives, it really helps to have live orange color.
That's great. You just answered the second part of that question, which is how does this reflect your relationship with yourself?
Oh, okay.
And so wonderful. Yes. Then we go and move to the open phase of, so this is an interesting question because you just talked about the last 10 years of your life and what legacy you'd like to leave behind and what you want, even what you want others to say at your funeral. But taking a glance at how to open up and see the broader perspective of your life, your impermanent life, and what mark are you leaving? What is the legacy that you're leaving?
Wow, now that's not just a little question.
That opens you up.
Here's where I'm going to. When I was in high school, I had to write a philosophy paper on the meaning of life.
Nice.
And I remember as a 17 or 18-year-old writing about that I hoped my life would be kind of like a tree, that I would plant roots, that I would leave something behind that would be nourishment for others.
Oh, I love
and in addition to my professional life, of course, I'm really close with my family. And right now I have college age kids in my life who I am just are near and dear to me. None of them did I birth, but I've helped raise a couple of girls who are now in their 20s, and I have nieces and nephews who I love dearly. And it's funny, but my legacy goes to them.
Yeah.
and to thinking that I would help support and nurture them in any ways that I can. So I see life as kind of rings, you know, and first and foremost, I guess there's learning to care and support my own well-being so that then I can have an impact and a ripple effect, maybe on the lives of others, how I show up. So the first ring, I guess, would be my family and then dear friends, which I'm incredibly grateful for. Um, and then it's my work, but my work is actually an outgrowth of all of that. You know,
Right.
to me, I don't see it, there's work and then there's life. It's one big life that's all integrated.
Yeah.
So how I feed one impacts the other. And I would say the same thing for my work, same thing I said about the kids that aren't so kids anymore, the young adults in my life and everyone in my life, that I hope I show up for them authentically through the good times and the struggles. And there's a beautiful reciprocation there as well, of people being there for me too. So I guess it's showing up in life as fully and authentically and as present as I can.
Nice. I love it. And so that is, I'm seeing the plant that you picked as
Oh,
part of that emerging root system that you're talking about. And the
yeah.
tree that you had at 17 years old is part of that emerging realization of the nature of who you are and that blossoming, that who you are, and that's part of your legacy. So then as you open up and you clear the slate, if you could do whatever you wanted, if you were completely supported, what would you be doing to live out that legacy?
I think I'm doing some of it now. I think I'm doing quite a bit of it now. Um, I have a lot of friends who are retiring, and I'm not.
Yeah.
So there is a part of me that would, of course, like a lot more freedom in my life. And by that, I just mean not such a 8 to 5 kind of existence with the full-time job right now. Although I love my job, so don't hear me saying that. Um, but just the freedom that someday I'll have to devote, more time, I guess, to my own retreat practice. That's
Yeah.
something I really miss right now, that inner circle of nurturing that. And I'm figuring out how to do that now within the confines of having a job, right? When you're self-employed, you can kind of do a little bit more retreating. So that caring for myself that way so I can show up, doing more retreats for me personally. For a lot of other people, retreats are not a thing. For me, they are. So I would say a more retreat time is something that's important to me.
Yeah, excellent. Well, that's great. And this is, I mean, it definitely speaks to your love of mindfulness. And I'm with you on all that. I think retreats are phenomenal when you start to release yourself from the world as it is and get
But
to,
if I could just add one thing,
yes,
I think it's really important to not frame mindfulness and this being connected to source as having to go away and be quiet.
yes,
I
that,
think that that's a part that feeds it, but whoa, that's not a requirement to
yes,
be fully engaged in our lives. There are many other things that people can do to bring themselves to a center and to bring themselves to be fully engaged in life. Mindfulness practices is both. You know, the solitude in our practice kind of feeds us, if you will, nourishes us, right?
yes.
Like the dirt in the tree or whatever you want to call it, all these
There
plant
you
metaphors we're using.
go.
But showing up in our lives is a powerful component of mindfulness. It's not passive. It's
Yeah,
very active and
yeah,
it's very alive.
I love it. Thank you, Marianne. I appreciate all that you have just said. And one of the things that I'm realizing too is I love to hear the heart and mind of people as I pick cards and hear you respond from that. And that's what I was getting a sense from, that very um, that ecosystem of awareness, that you're connected to nature and you're using the plant and you're digging in the roots and you're building from that place of source energy, or you're connected to that source energy. Appreciate all that you just said. Thank you for being on the show.
Oh, my pleasure, and love your work. If any of you listening have not tried Julie's game, you absolutely have to do it.
Thank you so much. All right.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Yeah.